I'm Debra Presti, and I am the Director of Case Management at Catholic Charities. I've been with them for 6 years. Prior to that, I've worked for employee assistance programs, other nonprofit agencies, and I've basically been in the field as a social worker at LCSW for 35 years. So I met Debbie Federer for the first time upon having spoken to her on the phone a couple of weeks ago, and I told her, I have to tell you, meeting the Debbies in this room, I am the least among you. I'm in a room of very formidable folks. My coworker, Tony Severo, approached me a couple of weeks ago and said, would you consider speaking on a panel about your experience in working with me, he's a job developer, and in your employment of a visually impaired person? I said, yeah, Tony, sure, I'd do anything for you. I said, but I have very little experience. This is the first time I've ever employed anybody with any kind of disability. So he said, that's okay, Deb. He says, that's what we want. I just want you to talk from the heart. You are not going to be one of the experts here. Just talk from the heart about your experience, our work together, and your new employee. So I said, okay. But I thought I better check that out with Debbie. I didn't entirely trust Tony. So I mentioned that to Debbie. I said, Deb, I have to tell you, I am not an expert in this field. I really know very little about it. This is the first time I've employed someone. She said, that's exactly what we want. So I'm saying all of that to you because I want to put out to you that I've also been told to speak from the heart and be candid and open and honest, and tell you about my concerns, my reservations, my fears, my doubts, my thoughts, whatever those might be, to not worry about being politically correct, but to be real. And so that's what I'm going to put out there. So in advance, I'm going to ask you for forgiveness. I also have to tell you something. I'm not going to tell you about what I've done in the past, because as I said, I've been a social worker my whole life. In 35 years, I've been thinking about it. I have never been the colleague, coworker, supervisor, anything of anyone with any kind of disability, visual impairment, no one in a wheelchair, nothing, nada. Now that shocked me when I was thinking about it, but I suspect it's not going to shock you listening to Debra speak this morning. I too am in my 50s, I'm 57 years old, so I go way back. It's shocking to me to think back on my work experience and to realize that. So why did I get into this? Well, first of all, I work on the 6th floor of Catholic Charities at 1011 First Avenue, where we also are home to the Guild for the Blind. And case management, my department, and Guild for the Blind, we sit right next to each other. But I will tell you this, in 6 years, Celso Vera, many of you may know him, who was the director, he would come to directors' meetings and yell and lecture at every one of us for not being more open and accessible and willing and pursuant of hiring visually impaired people. And I would walk out of the room and I would think, ah, Celso, you're such a great guy, but you don't know how busy I am. You don't understand how few staff I have and how many people I have to serve and deliver services to. And so what was I saying? What was I thinking? Just started thinking about this now. In retrospect, what I was thinking was that hiring a visually impaired person was going to be more work for me. I was going to have to do something. I was going to be burdened in some way. Now, you got to know a little bit about me. I'm a huge caregiver. It is a strength, but it's also my deficit. Everybody who works for me has to be happy, has to feel loved and welcomed. When I initially got my job at Catholic Charities, I would put flowers on the desk, I would clean the desk down, I would stock it, I'd make sure everything was really, really well prepared to welcome my prospective employee. I gave that up in about a month because I just couldn't keep up with it. But I'm a caregiver. I'm somebody who wants everyone to be happy. So in my mind, honestly, when I think about it, this is not something that I consciously thought about. I just thought about it for this presentation. I was just worried that I would have to do so much more. Here's what happened. Tony and I are both loud. We overhear each other. And this is how I think we became acquainted. He, I think, learned a little bit about who I am, what I care about in an employee and what matters to me. And I was getting increasingly impressed with the work that I was hearing him do, becoming much more aware of the visually impaired people that were coming for services and were also teachers in our computer labs and mobility trainers. I was just becoming much more familiar. And so one day, Tony approached me and he said, I got a guy that I think is the right guy for you. given that I think I know a little bit about what you're looking for in case management and what you guys do. And I said, okay, so tell me a little bit more. And he told me, I said, yeah, sounds like a good guy. I'd be happy to interview him. And I really did it for Tony. Hear the implication. I did this as a favor, not thinking that I'm going to get the Employee of the Year, which is what I got. So here's what happened. So Fernando came for an interview. I was going to be on vacation. We wanted to move our interviewing process along. And so Fernando came and he was interviewed by 2 other folks. And when I came back from vacation, I said, did you interview Tony's guy? And they said, yes, we did. I said, how was he? They said, we think you are going to like him. And I said, did you like him? They go, yeah, we like him, but we think you're going to like him. And I said, okay, why is that? His heart. His heart and your heart, it just doesn't go like that with one another. You're going to like him. At the time, we had 2 positions available. We had one in St. Cecilia's in East Harlem. It is a small program of 3 people. We serve the East Harlem community. We have a food pantry there. We do case management services, eviction prevention. It's in a rickety rectory. There's really rickety stairs that if you get a delivery from the food bank, you might have to take the food down those rickety stairs. It's often just staffed by 1 person. It's just, you know, it's not a site conducive to anybody's pleasure or enjoyment. But that's the site. So in my head, automatically, I'm thinking that's not going to be the best site for this Fernando guy. Then I meet Fernando. By the way, I'm also liking him for my site, because at my site, which is at 1011 First Avenue, we are not too far from the 30th Street Men's Shelter. We get a lot of people walking up from 30th Street, a lot of people coming from Main Chance, which is on 32nd Street, a drop-in center. And I had known that Fernando had experience working in the shelter system. So Fernando came in, we met, and yes, my coworkers were right. Our hearts, I think, clicked. But I also was extremely impressed with his experience, his background. By the way, he had no case management background. And I've interviewed thousands of case managers, and sometimes I'm not looking for a case manager. I'm looking for somebody with something else, something special, a mission-drivenness, an ability to kind of articulate the work that we do in the nonprofit world with a sense of mission, upholding people's dignity. This is the kind of conversation that Fernando and I were having. I was still thinking about the East Harlem position. Then it turns out Fernando told me he prefers speaking in English, and East Harlem is a pretty much predominantly Spanish-speaking environment. So I said, okay, we're gonna go ahead with 1011. That's the best place for him to be. And so I also had in my mind, I like him. I want him next to me. I want him working with me. I was also thinking that as we take on this new endeavor, I want to be the one responsible for it. I want to be the one to sort of do this first. But again, all these things, implications that somehow there's going to be trouble, somehow it's going to be a problem. Well, one of the things I went back to Tony, I said, Tony, now what do? Do I go to HR? Do I get some kind of special equipment? Is this going to go on my budget? What am I going to do? Deb, we're going to take care of that. He said, I'm going to help you with that. And he said, trust me, Fernando's going to come in and he's going to know what he has to do. And sure enough, all of that stuff, the accommodation stuff that had been set up, was indiscernible to me. I had nothing to do with that. In fact, I have to tell you, I think it all got set up before our normal computer system gets set up. It usually takes a week at Catholic Charities for our IT department to get things rolling. This got rolling a little bit more quickly. And sure enough, Fernando came in and he was in full command of himself, extremely competent, extremely hardworking. I'm going to tell you 1 or 2 other little stories and then I'll stop. Christmas time, we get what we call St. Nicholas Project. This is big bags of gifts and clothes for a select group of clients that we have decided we're going to give this stuff to. And it all comes in big packages, and it's on another floor, and we have to go upstairs, and we have to pack it, and we have to get, we have to bring it down. It's big and bulky. So as I'm thinking of who I'm going to invite to come upstairs with me, I'm thinking, all right, I'm going to ask this guy, I'm going to ask this gal, I'm going to go. And then I thought, should I ask Fernando? Should I not ask Fernando? If I ask him, will I be insulting him? Am I being insensitive? If I don't ask him, am I insulting him? Will I be insensitive? So I decided, I said, Fernando, we're going up to the 9th floor to get all the St. Nicholas stuff. You want to come? He goes, yeah, sure. Anyhow, the end of the story is when we got up there, I think Fernando looked at me as a woman with gray hair, a little bit older, and a woman, and he goes, let me take those packages for you. So he relieved me of my packages. Now, all of this may be stuff that you're thinking, what's wrong with this woman? Why does she think this way? I think maybe the reason for those 35 years of never having met a person with any kind of impairment in the workplace has to do with because there's probably a lot of people out there like me, prospective employers who would really be enormously changed, who would have this epiphany moment if they only had exposure to a Tony and to a Fernando. Thank you.